Hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, is described by the World Health Organization as a serious ailment noted as a silent killer. This life-changing disease predisposes sufferers to risks of heart, brain and kidney diseases, among other ailments. In sub-Saharan Africa, emerging epidemiological data suggests that hypertension has become a major public health challenge, requiring quick intervention for management and prevention. On the program today, hypertension is our focus plus our complementary segment. I am Salwa Khalil Ibrahim. This is Health Options. Now I ask, when last did you check your blood pressure? And how interested are you about your total well-being, particularly for those suffering from hypertension? Sometimes this is expedient. Hypertension can be hereditary and could be as a result of unhealthy lifestyle. In Nigeria, the last 2 decades have seen a rise in prevalence of hypertension, these days even among the younger population. Is this a sickness for life? How do you balance your lifestyle to avoid hypertension? A consultant physician and cardiologist is in the house to address these concerns shortly. If you just joined us, the program is Health Options and our focus is on hypertension, and I'm now being joined in the studio by a consultant physician and cardiologist, Dr. Adaku Margaret Nwako. Many thanks for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Now, tell us, why are we seeing a rise in cases of hypertension in Nigeria, particularly these days?
Thank you for that question. So, there's so many factors that are responsible for the increase in prevalence of hypertension globally and Nigeria specifically. We have increase in population growth, right? Nigeria is estimated to be about 200 million people now, as at the last count. People tend to live longer. Environmental pollutants, fumes, exhaust fumes and all that, fossil fuel contamination. But more importantly is lifestyle factors like sedentary lifestyle. You find out that with the increase in urbanization, people are sitting more and moving less. So someone leaves his house, drives to work, sits at the office all day, closes from work, gets into his car, drives all the way home, sits in traffic several hours in areas that have high traffic congestion levels, and then goes home, has dinner and sits. Then habits, negative habits like increased alcohol intake, cigarette smoking, processed foods, right? Because of the like I mentioned, increased urbanization, people don't really have time to eat freshly prepared meals, so you have more of ingestion of processed foods, frozen foods, fast foods, right? And for these, you can't really regulate the amount of salt in these. So by the time you put all these factors together, that is really what drives the increased rates of hypertension that we see.
Okay, I know in the past we used to say you just see hypertension among the older people. Now you tend to see even the younger population, like I mentioned in my introduction.
Exactly.
Coming up with the cases of hypertension. And then sometimes you see people even who embark or have a healthy lifestyle. Why is that in particular among young population?
Thank you for that question. So there are different ways we categorize hypertension, right? So there's primary or essential hypertension, which accounts for over 90% of the prevalence that we have. And then there's secondary hypertension, meaning that there are secondary diseases that are driving this high blood pressure. I need to mention that hypertension is a disease in itself, but it's a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So cardiovascular disease, things like heart failure, stroke, heart attacks, kidney disease, those are the things that you classify as cardiovascular disease. So hypertension has been found to be the singular most important factor that drives these. So for someone that has in his genes, right, hypertension, you find out that that person doesn't really need to get to the older age group to begin to manifest that, right? And that's why screening comes into play, because it's tagged to the silent killer. Like, it's silent. You would not know that your blood pressure is high unless you check. Or in people, sadly, that their first presentation is usually with an event. Maybe he has a stroke. You hear stories like, oh, he just got into the car and was driving, and the next thing he just suddenly stopped, and then that was it. Right, so their first presentation is presenting with a complication, which is what we are trying to prevent. So really, screening is what will be able to detect this population, and then we can now begin to trace, okay, is it hereditary, is it secondary, is there an underlying disease that is driving this? And then, like I mentioned in the introduction, lifestyle. Obesity has been found to be a major driver of cardiovascular disease. So you have kids that are being fed on fast foods, right? They take a lot of processed foods, right? So you find that there's an increase in the levels of obesity amongst children, right? And so those are some of the factors that are driving this, in addition to their diet, poor dietary habits, and all that.
Hypertension or high blood pressure, is it curable, or do you manage it? How do you manage it?
Thank you for that question. So it's important to categorically state that hypertension is not curable, right? So there are diseases that are curable, right? But hypertension is not one of them. It can be managed through lifestyle measures and pharmacological or medication where necessary. But curable, no, it's not.
Okay, we'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll get insight to the treatment of high blood pressure.
Thank you.
Join us again. If you just joined us, the program is Health Options, and we've been talking about hypertension with Dr. Margaret Nwako. Okay, now let's talk about the management. Since you say it's a disease for life, now what are the most important points now one need to take in managing this kind of ailment?
So in terms of managing high blood pressure, like I said, it's based on risk stratification. It's not a one-size-fits-all. A lot of patients, what they do is, oh, my friend has high blood pressure, he's on this group of medications. So what are you taking for high blood pressure? Okay, so that, okay, let me just take it. No, it doesn't work that way, because no two patients are the same. So it's important that, first of all, you screen. Check your blood pressure at regular intervals. You check, it's normal, 6 months, once a year. Just keep an eye on your blood pressure readings. So when a patient consistently on different occasions has the systolic blood pressure, it's 140 or above, or the diastolic, the one number below, is 90 and above consistently, because there are different things that can affect blood pressure. Blood pressure is not static. Okay. Things like emotions. If someone really upsets you, hormones are released into your system that make the blood pressure shoot up, that make the heart rate shoot up. You check the blood pressure at that time, it's going to be high. Doesn't mean that person has hypertension. Okay. Because once that stressor is removed, it comes down to normal. That's not hypertension. Okay. If somebody is in pain, the blood pressure would go up because there's agony. You address that pain, blood pressure normalizes. So hypertension is when these figures are consistently at these levels and above on separate occasions. Okay. That's defined as hypertension. So the first step is to be properly screened. If the patient now falls into this criteria, it's important that they visit a healthcare facility. Common practice in our environment, oh, my BP is high. You walk into a pharmacy. What can I take? Oh, they check and then they give you. It's not the best, because, like I mentioned, there's cardiovascular risk clustering. These things tend to come together. So when you walk into a health facility, medicine has a process we call history. They'd ask you, your family, anybody in the family with this, with this.
The hereditary.
Exactly, right? Maybe substances. There's so many questions you'll be asked, your lifestyle habits. always, then you examine, physical examination, you'll be examined. If there are things that show that this blood pressure is not something that's just starting, it's been there over time, those things will be picked up on physical examination. Then the patient will now move to investigations. So you run tests, you check the kidneys, you check the blood sugar, like I mentioned, check the cholesterol levels, check the full blood, so many things that will be done to screen that patient. So you get your baseline levels and say, oh, as at the first time you were diagnosed, these were your parameters. So blood sugar was normal, cholesterol was this, that, and then when all that is done, the patient is now risk profiled. So it puts into low, medium, high, very high risk. So based on that risk stratification, we'll now decide, oh, this is the best modality. There's something we call pre-hypertension, where you have blood pressure of 120 to 139 systolic, and then 80 to 89 diastolic. That's like the precursor to hypertension. At this level, we advise lifestyle changes. So recommendation, exercise, at least 150 minutes of aerobic exercise. By aerobic exercise, we mean exercise in which all your muscle groups are moving. So your hands are moving, your legs are moving, your heart rate increases, your breathing, so you're taking in oxygen. That level of exercise helps to maintain cardiovascular health. Then the other arm is diet. Every class of food is important. I must state that. It's just the levels, the proportions that vary, right? So less of carbs, more of healthy protein. By healthy protein is protein that has low cholesterol levels. So things like white meat, so chicken without the skin, or fish, they have lower levels of cholesterol. That's encouraged. Okay, a little bit of carbohydrates. Then fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables cannot be overemphasized.
I would like to ask now, what's the difference between high blood pressure and low blood pressure?
So as the name implies, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, all this is determined by the levels. So for hypertension, 140/90 and above, right? For low blood pressure, what we define as low blood pressure or hypotension is from 90/60 and below. Well, basically 90/60 is hypotension, and at that level the patient begins to have symptoms. So they may have dizziness, they may have fainting spells, something is triggering it. But it's important to mention that I have seen some patients that have 90/60 and that's normal for them. They are asymptomatic. It's fine for them. So it's not that, oh, once you see 90/60 and you're asymptomatic, you begin to panic. No. In some people, it's normal for them. But generally, that's the cutoff for hypertension.
Okay. Also, as a physician now, what is your advice now to people living with hypertension? How do they manage themselves on a final note now?
In summary, hypertension is a silent killer, like cannot be overemphasized. So proper control is key. So in terms of management, it's two-pronged. If your healthcare provider has prescribed lifestyle interventions for you, it's important to keep to them. I know it's difficult with the kind of work we do in our society and all that. Oh, I don't have time. But you can take exercise and food as medicines and still be able to achieve control. However, if your level is beyond lifestyle intervention alone, and you have been placed on medication as an adjunct to the lifestyle measures, it's imperative that you take your medication. There are so many classes of antihypertensives. Now, if there's any interaction, any adverse effects, please report back to your healthcare provider who will make the necessary adjustments. Take your clinic visits very seriously, because at these follow-up appointments, the dose and even the number of medications can be adjusted to fit your blood pressure levels. If you do this, I'm sure that the control routes will be perfect and one will be able to live longer.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you for having me.
Many thanks for being there, and if you're just joining us, The program is Health Option, and we've been speaking about hypertension with Dr. Adaku Margaret Nwako, who is a consultant physician and cardiologist. Now, the rains have set in, and common ailment during this season is cold and catarrh. Dr. Abdul Karim Aminu will tell us natural remedies to overcome the weather on our Nature's Corner. Welcome to our complimentary segment where we talk about everything nature. And with me here, I have Dr. Abdullahi Aminu Abdul Karim. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, so now what are those common ailments we see during this raining season?
We have different kind of issues, or let me say illness, that we face during the cold season, or let me say the harmattan, or the winter, or the rainy season. During the rainy season, what we experience much is people with aged people with common illness of arthritis, rheumatism, arthritis. They experience their pains, their crisis coming then. And for those who are sickle cell anemias, have different issues then. And for those who have allergy of maybe asthmatic patients, they actually experience all those attacks at that period of time. So for those who have this history of illness, please, what we advise you is you have to take up your home remedies that you're already used to. For those with asthma, please, what you do is get your ginger close to you. Make sure you are into ginger drinks. Make sure you take anything that has to do with your cinnamon. Whenever you're taking your water, don't make it just pure water like that. Just get your lemon inside your bottled water and sip it all the time. And make sure you are always hydrated so that you will not get dehydrated. Whenever you are taking those water, make sure you cut off from anything that has to do with cold things. Generally, don't take anything that has to do with much cold, please. Either cold drinks or cold water, please. Then for those periods, for those who have arthritis as well, you have to avoid taking bath with cold water. Make sure you take your bath with hot water, and make sure you take your bath with a lot of steam, so that you get yourself after all. Then you make sure you have your balms that you can use to massage your joints and also the body generally. And for those who have issue with flu and catarrh, most of people have allergy. A little dust or maybe a little drop of rain on their head and so on, they clearly have the allergy of catching cold. So for those who have maybe history of pneumonias or any history of asthma and so on, please just try and make sure you get this home remedy available in your house, so that whenever you have such attack, those things can help you to recover fast. Cold and catarrh can be a symptoms of different illness, and it can be of allergy. Since the season is coming now, we have a season where the rainfall and the harmattan and so on, that gives us into more of flu and catarrh. For flu and catarrh, in your environment, you can get a lot of remedy that can protect you from even contacting flu and catarrh, and as well some allergy that can lead to flu and catarrh. For those who have their lemon at their backyard, this is a very good remedy. This can also help you. You can just have it in your bottle of water. You can be sipping much of water. When you have much rainfall and so on, make sure you're always hydrated too, because when you get dehydrated, it affects virtually all the thyroids or even the vocal lobe, where you can not speak much. You start losing your voice. You can cut it into two, then you put it in your bottled water. You can be sipping it, or you make sure the bottled water is a bit cool warm. Yes, when it's a bit warm, it's more better preferable. And with this, the lemon also helps in terms of detoxification as well. It can help you in terms of detoxification, detoxify the lungs and so many things in the body. Then also, The lemon has a lot of nutrient and component inside that can help you to boost your immune system. It helps you in terms of your immune system that can go against minor or let me say little bacteria that still flies when we have a condition of our rainfalls and other weather. So the climatic condition can lead to a lot of things that we have to consider in terms of our health status. Whenever we are having such climatic condition, the first thing you do is you have to make sure you change your lifestyle. You have to change the type of food we eat, and we have to change the spices we also eat. Yes, with the spices, we have a lot of things that you can mix in your, for those who are good in pepper soup. You have to spice it up with so many things this time around. There is a clove. This clove you are seeing, the red clove, is very good. Is more like antibiotic. Yes, in nature, it's more of antibiotic. It has a lot of component and also some antibacterials that takes care of all those kind of small infections that come through fluid and cold and catarrh. So it can help you with this clove. You boil your water with the clove and also sip it. You make it like your tea. You can add honey. Adding the honey, it will give you a very good syrup that has to do with cough syrup. Yes, with this you are good to go. You are against the cough. Cough cannot just come in anyhow. It's a very good antibiotic when it comes to any respiratory organs infections. Lemongrass, this is common in most of our environments. You can boil it on its own. Just the juice. You can even apply the juice on your legs where you have your aches like rheumatism, arthritis. It also helps for it. And we can also use it together with turmeric. You boil it together with turmeric. It's good to go like your tea. And as well, you can boil it with the clove and the ginger and also with the lemongrass. This is very, very good. And you can make sure once you boil it finish, make sure you sip the water. Yes, then you take only the fluid and the water, please. And they have some component, or let me say some nutrients, that is not just to protect you from arthritis. It also neutralizes our nerves and the bloodstream. It makes this blood more clean and so on. It's like anti-detoxifier too. It detoxifies, and also it has like a medicinal value for anything that has to do with fluid and catarrh. The lemongrass, you can have it in a bowl and hot water where they can take a cover for it. They can steam, yes, and just inhale it in. It's very, very good too for the children and also for the adults. For those who have it like a fever, the catarrh is coming up like fever. Yes, and maybe the chest is already highly congested, it's heavy already, you can't even breathe the way you're supposed to breathe and so on. Once you have that steam bath and you take the inhaling of the heat in, within 3 minutes you'll feel free.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This brings us to the end of this week's episode of Health Options. You can catch up with these and other episodes of the program on our YouTube channel. You can also send us your contributions, comments and suggestions on nta.gov.ng. Many thanks for watching. I am Salwa Khalil Ibrahim. Take care of yourself.